Okay, got my seal pressed in. This bearing goes on the back here, and may have to press it in. The last one pushed in. I think this one I'm going to have to press it in. Okay, came pretty close. That's a little big. There, let me take it over here and press it. Okay, I'm not going to take them off, but on the output flange, there's 2 sealing rings that go on here, and they're hook and loop, so you just push it and it'll pop in. They didn't give them in the kit, so got nothing. Oh, I got to put my snap ring in. I'm not going to bother with them, so snap ring goes in. If you can find the taper, of course the short end always goes up. Okay, make sure we are all the way in that groove. Okay. Yeah. May have to take this over there and press this in also. Once I get that pressed in, we have a snap ring. Short end of the taper is going to go up. Okay, and we have this gear, this side with the splines faces up. I had to get a baby heel bar underneath and help get this off because it didn't, right here up here at the top, it did not want to come off. Alright, probably going to have to go press this on. Because it's going on just as tight as it came off. There we go. Looks like we're all the way down. Alright, short end of the taper up again. There we go. Then I marked my housing of where it came off. I had to use a seal puller to get this up out of there. Okay, 3 10mm. The pump gears go with the dots up. Also has a step side that goes down. There we go. And I did mark this, but I flat sanded it off, I believe. So, judging by this, I do believe that this goes right there. These are 40 torques, or 30 torques, and one of them got stripped out, so I have made a slot. I'm going to use a flat blade to tighten it back up. I don't think you can line this up but this way, because I don't think that's going to line up if you put it any other way. And our pump drive goes on here. Okay. Okay, this is a differential for the transfer case. And I'm not going to take this collar off right here that this bearing rides on, or this right here that the slider rides on. If you want to take this off, you do have to heat this up. And this collar has to come off first. And there is a little pin that goes in that keeps this thing from turning. They're sure worried about it turning. But anyway, you got to take that pin out. Then this piece, this hub that the slider slides on, will come off. I don't need to take any of that off. I don't need to replace it. But just so you know, in order to get this hub off, you can't just put a puller under here and pull it off. You're going to have to pull under this collar right here. There is a bushing on each side for these spiders to ride on right here, so you can check those out. On the cross shaft here, I have the two spider gears with the washers on them, and then there's a pin that goes in here and locks that in. There's another spider with a washer on this side, and of course there is a bushing on this side. It does have the lineup pin only on one side, so you can't screw up getting that in there. I am going to have to put this in a vise to hold it. They are right-handed threads, 72 foot-pounds on these 9/16 bolts, or 14 millimeters. Either one. 14 would be a little bit tighter. Also have to press this bearing on, and I do not have a camera at the press, so you're not going to be able to see that, so I'm going to go ahead and press that bearing on. There's, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 of these bolts. Okay, there's no need for you to watch me just screw these bolts down. You know what I'm going to do, so I'll see you when I get the next part. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned it, but on the ring gear, you also have to heat it up. They suggest that you put it in boiling water and have it all clean, take it out of the boiling water, and immediately set it down on here. On when I go to replace everything on here, there's 2 cage bearings that go right here. The slider has a dot and a flat side that goes this way, and then the gear, if we replace it, I don't know if it's coming in on the camera or not, but it's pretty rough looking. All 3 of the gears that ride here are pretty rough. So we're waiting to see if we can find the parts and if the customer wants to replace them. So this goes down on here like so. This bearing will be pressed onto here the next time you see it. Once it's pressed down, this gear gets pressed down to where the snap ring groove is open, and then we got taper to our snap ring. We want the short end of the taper up. Whoever was in here last time put this upside down. I like to never got this stupid thing off of there. So anyway, the snap ring goes on the groove right there, holding it all together. Okay.
There you go, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
Have a Merry Christmas.
All right, you too.
See you later in the new year.
All righty. Okay, I've already pressed my seal in. This bearing goes here. I may have to press it in. Oh, I slid in, so we're good there. Opening of the snap ring, going to put away from the opening of that slot. Just like so. Let's see if this will slide on there. I had to press it off before. Alright, gonna have to press this on there. Also got to press this on here. Goes on this way. Then this snap ring, short end of the taper, is going to be up again. And it'll go on the groove to hold that in there. I'll be back when I get that on there. Okay, I don't think I said it, but the way I got this off, I didn't use a puller. I just pulled the snap ring off. I got this in the cooker and I got it nice and hot. And I got air hammer out here and I grabbed of course I needed a rag because it was really hot, but I grabbed this and I just pushed it off with the air hammer, pulling on it. So that's the way that came out, and then I used an air hammer to get the shaft out. Came out real easy. Here we've got the snap ring on there. Everything looking good here. We have the flat side of the slider. Goes on our fork. There's half moon keys on here keeping this fork on the shaft. It does spin around. So if you need to change your fork, that's how you get it off, is taking these. They're almost a half moon. They're not quite a snap ring. This goes down in this hole right here. Yeah, I'm gonna slide down on there. There we go. And this is going to face up. Alright, we'll get the next part. Okay, here's the other gear that is really messed up. We have a bearing that presses on out here. Slider goes with the bevel and the flat side facing this way. We have a cage bearing. We have our gear, and we have another bearing that presses on the outside here. Can't do any of that until I find out what we're doing here. Okay, we got this shaft, we got this bearing. This one has no snap ring groove on it. I'm going to have to press this down, and then if we replace this gear, you see how bad it is. This side faces down. It has to be pressed on also. Then after we get that pressed down, alright, shouldn't have done that. There we go. After we get that pressed down, there's a snap ring that goes on the groove right there. Short end of the taper up again. Gear goes on. This bearing goes on top with the snap ring groove facing up. And then this bearing goes, the snap ring goes on the groove right here. Short end of the taper facing up again. Okay, I'm going to have to explain a lot of this because I'm not going to be able to show it the way I'm going to have to do it. A couple of things that we're going to have to do here is make measurements for our shims. Number one, we're going to measure from the top of here down to the surface of here, subtracting our bar. So you're going to take a height gauge, or you can take a pair of calipers, and you can measure that distance right there, subtract this distance, and once you have that distance, you're going to get this distance. Boy, everything is in the way. You're going to measure this distance across here down to that surface down there. Get that, subtract that. Then once the case half is together, I'm going to shove this race down up against the bearing. We're going to measure from the top of the race to the top of here. That's going to determine that shim. For this shim here, you're supposed to measure the difference between this surface and that surface. Mine is non-existent, it's the same. And then you're also going to measure from the top of the race down to this surface right here for this shim. There's an O-ring. It goes right here on this tube. There's our filter. I've already pressed. These races just go in real easily, so it's not that big of a deal on those, but on these I've already pressed them in. On the linkage here, we have this flat spot. This is going to go on right there through our linkage. I've already pressed the seal in. There's a washer that goes between. Our arm goes on like so. And I may have to polish this up a little bit more. Still fitting really snug. Yeah, I'm going to polish this up some more. So anyhow, then this is going to go through with the flat spot facing in, and our nut's going to go on. As I get to this point, I'm going to have to, on our gears here, here's our differential assembly. The gentleman wanted a lower gear put in for low gear, so the ring gear on the diff had to be changed, and low gear over here had to be changed. These are two of the three gears that were bad. Of course, I got all my bearings pressed on. Our fork goes on just like this. I'm going to set this up in such a way that this is sitting up just like so I can feed, as I'm lowering the case onto it, I can feed my lever, turn my lever into the forks, and once that's like that, I can put the silicone on my case half, bolt my case half down. It is 27 foot-pounds for the bolts. Once I get there and I get my shims selected, we should be back. Here's the input shaft with the other gear that was bad. This is how it's assembled. Let's see, anything else we need to talk about? I don't think we need to talk about anything else. Once I get that to that point, I'll be back. Okay, well, we ran into a problem. Since he wanted the low gear changed, change the diameter of the gear. Now the gear is hitting this baffle. So I'm waiting on a call to find out what they want me to do here. I have a feeling I'm going to be going and putting the old stuff back in it, and that's just more work. So until we figure out what we're going to be doing right here, I don't know if maybe they want to take this baffle out. I don't know. So I don't think it's going to need this that much because it's so close to the case. I think it'll be able to sling enough oil up around it. But I'm not doing anything unless somebody says to do it. So I'm waiting on a call from the place that he bought the stuff from, and we'll find out what we're gonna do here. Okay, so what we did was we went in here and let's see, this one was on this side, this one was on the other side. So what I did is went in here and cut this lip off of the shield. This has to be in here to hold the tube in. So we left that on there. On right here, that's about how you have to grind it down. Went ahead and found out what shims I need for back here. Set this pretty much on where it needs to be and set this down. Put my differential in here to make sure that I had plenty of clearance in here, especially for once it heats up and the metal expands. So I got probably, I don't know, a 1/16 of clearance here, I would say, maybe a little less. So we had to do that on the outside. This is what it looks like on this side. So what I did when I put this in the case is I set this up with some I don't know what you want to call it, spacers, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I set this up upside down and used that to get it up so I could put my linkage into my shift fork. Now they show you stuffing it into the case sideways, which is fine and dandy, but I got a torn rotator cuff, and doing stuff like that really irritates it, and mine's been hurting me for a few days now. So I don't want to put any stress on it. So that's the way I'm going to do it. I've already found out what shims I need. Here's my shims for this part of it anyway. I also found the shim for the other one. So what I'm going to do, since you're not going to be able to see it anyway, I'm going to get this stuffed into the case. Put a thin bead of silicone. It came with ultra gray. That's what I'm going to use. Any of the ultras is fine. So once I get that together, 27 foot-pounds, I believe, on the bolts, 14 millimeters. Once I get that to where I can flip this up and you can see the rest of it, I'll be back. Alright, I got my shim for here. I got 2 shims for here. On here, I have to raise this up enough to get the snap ring into there. So let's see if I can do this on camera where you can see it. See if I can get this up enough. And I'm going to tighten this snap ring up just a little bit. It's a little loose. See if we can get a little more tension on it. Alright, with that. Alright, silicone for here. This will only line up one direction. So let's go ahead and get this down. So our numbers are going to be pointing this way. $14 millimeters for that. 27 foot-pounds again. Yep, I turned it the wrong way. There we go. Let's see if my torque wrench is wanting to work today. Every time I take it to the snap-on guy, it works, but every time I try to use it, it doesn't. my little pedestal. Alright. Now, this one goes on here. I'm going to put some gear lube a little bit inside the pump, so it's got something inside of it already. Then I got to line this up inside this slot right here, spline the shaft into here. Alright, we got some long 14 millimeters and some shorter ones. Can't screw up where they go. Seven foot-pounds again. Yeah, that one's too long for there. I'll change that one out. Alright, we have the shield. It was on these 2 bolts and one up there, so I'll leave that off for the momentary because I gotta put my switches in. And go ahead and take this bolt back out. And I think I'm missing a bolt somewhere because I seem to be short. So I've got to hunt a bolt up. Alright, we're still turning well. Okay, I ended up having to take this thing back apart for some reason. It didn't want to stay engaged in low gear. I don't know what was up. I took it all the way apart, checked everything, check ball, spring, plug, 40 Torx. I did not see anything. Put it back together without silicone. Everything's working good, so I don't know. Took it back apart, put the silicone on it, still working good, so I guess it just didn't want to go together the first time. I don't know what the deal was. And it's doing it again. I don't know what his deal is. Thought maybe the slider was on upside down, but it wasn't. And clearance is coming out right. I don't know. I have to figure out what this problem is. Okay, I found what the problem is. They didn't say anything about, of course they didn't give any directions, but I've been watching some stuff online. And it's where they talk about cutting all that out. Nobody mentioned anything about the diff hitting right here. So I'm going to go grind this down some. We should be okay. Alright, we have this housing. Go ahead and put all this back in there. Thread sealer on this stuff. 40 Torx on this. Washer on here. Inch and an eighth on the, or inch and a 16th on the switch. 40 torques on the plug. Okay, it might have been even easier to go ahead and put this housing on first. The way I found that problem was I put this housing on and I was able to support that and keep everything from hitting on the table, and I spun it around and found out it was hitting the fork. And it was only doing it every once in a while, so it was just barely a problem. So if you are putting one of these together, you might want to go ahead and you're putting that low gear kit in, you might want to go ahead and grind down on the fork right there where the diff comes around, because that's where the problem was. It drove me nuts. I like to never found it. I thought it was something to do with the slider not engaging the gear, because that's what it sounded like, and I just could not figure out why it was doing that. So like I say, if you're putting one of these together, you might want to go ahead and put this shaft in first. And actually, I kind of found, wish I'd have filmed it, but I just didn't have the camera on at the time, because I've had this thing apart. I can't tell you how many times. I'm getting really frustrated with this thing. But I found out that if you go ahead and put this on there, put your center idler gear down into the case and pull the slider off. You don't have to put both of them in at the same time. You can put the diff in and the slider and work it. It seemed to be a little bit easier for me. Okay, so I'm going to put the 14 millimeters in here, 27 foot-pounds again. Let me go ahead and stick a couple of bolts in here so that this doesn't come back off. I'll come back and torque them down in a little bit. Go ahead and finish this up, because I think the battery's probably getting ready to go, and I don't have to go through the hassle of redoing all that other. So we got two sensors here. I believe they're both the same, but I did mark them, so I'll get that put on there. I have a 12 millimeter that goes on right here, two 14s here, one's long, one's short. It's going to go there, and then when we get ready to put the motor in, spring and detent in there. I think I already talked about that though, so I'm not going to show it again. Our gear goes down on here. Make sure and it's not turned properly, so I got to figure out what's up there. There we go. There, it's turning. Alright, I think you're supposed to engage that all the way back. Let me find out about that. Yeah, you're supposed to engage it, so go ahead and see if we can get this to turn and engage. May have to take this back off. Actually, I need to take that off. I don't want to do that. There's no detent in there. Okay, then you put silicone on your motor. Set your motor on, has a dowel pin, of course. And you can gauge your gear. Dowel pin here, dowel pin there, so it's not like you're going to screw it up. Here's a 12 millimeter for that dust shield. And then 12 millimeters for our motor. And thank God I'm finally done with this thing.